Andrew Berry's legacy. There's an asterisk here. Like there's a note here. But as things stand right now, Andrew Berry's legacy is going to be defined by the Deshaun Watson deal. And that's understanding, like we were just talking about, that Jimmy Haslam is accepting culpability for that. He's saying, you can put it on me, I'm the owner. That's all fine and good. But at the end of the day, the GM makes those decisions. At least that's what the role entails. So unless somebody comes out one day and flat out says, this was Paul DePodesta or this was Kevin Stefanski, that's going to fall on Andrew Berry's lap most notably. And so understanding that, unless he finds another franchise quarterback, unless they go out next year and they draft Fernando Mendoza and he comes in and he's the Browns quarterback for the next 15, 20 years and everyone's cool with it and everyone's happy and the franchise gets turned around because of that, he will be remembered forever as the guy who made the trade for Deshaun Watson. And ultimately, like, whether or not you think you should be back next year, I think a lot of it does come down to how willing you are to look past that for now and give him another chance, or if you think like that's the line in the sand. I've seen enough on top of him not having not having a ton of successful draft picks in general up until this year. That's kind of where I think that conversation goes. But this all is tied together into this weird web, this tapestry that we've seen woven here, where, you know, who's to blame? Is it time to move on? Does Jimmy Haslam need to clean house now that DePodesta's gone? Who do you trust him to bring in the right people to finally like get this organization going in the right direction and for him to lean on? It's all great questions, but it's all tied back to it's funny how it's all tied back to that one decision, the Deshaun decision. And as much as I admire the fact that Jimmy Haslam took the blame for it, it falls on Andrew Berry's lap ultimately because he's the GM.
I don't disagree with you, but I will add this to it. This is why I asked the question that I asked you. Do I take things that's said at face value too much or too literal? Because last week when we sat here and I kind of did the whole spiel laying out all the bad moves Andrew Berry has made, you notice one thing I didn't bring up was the trade for Deshaun Watson. Why didn't I bring it up? Not because I don't feel like he didn't have anything to do with it, but because my two ears heard the owner say, put that on me. If you notice when I talk about Kevin Stefanski, I never mentioned Deshaun Watson. Why? Because the owner said, put that on me. There's enough outside of Deshaun Watson. That's enough reason for both of them to be let go.
True.
To where I don't even have to bring that part of it up, right?
Yeah.
But clearly that's a part of it. I think you are 100% right about everything that you just said, because our good friend Daryl Reiters, you know, he even said all of this is on Andrew Berry. He gave Kevin Stefanski Dillon Gabriel. Okay, well, a lot of people from a fan perspective is going to look at it just that way. But people like you and I believe, well, Kevin Stefanski finally had the opportunity to pick his quarterback. This is who he told his GM he wanted. Whether his GM gave any pushback on that or not, we will never know. But Kev finally got what he said he wanted. Okay?
Yeah.
To me, this is why I'm asking the question that I'm asking. Because his legacy is tied to that. Kevin's legacy is tied to that. But I am wondering for some people out there, or really more so for the Haslams, is it something else about Andrew Berry that they absolutely love? That they might feel like, okay, talent evaluation, probably not it. But there's other components to what his job title is. Because Ron, shout out to Ron who called us, you know, he said, you know, Andrew Berry as a general manager hasn't given his team a quarterback. He is 1,000% right. But what has Andrew Berry, the executive of football operations, done? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Those are two different things.
I get where with the angle you're looking at this from, and like why Jimmy Haslam's thinking like bigger picture probably than just individual things. But at the end of the day, the most important part of his job is talent evaluation.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? And so, and here's the other thing I'll say, because you bring up, you know, you don't put because Jimmy took blame for the Deshaun thing, you don't bring it up with the other two guys. Okay, I can respect that. For me, though, the owner taking blame for it, like, I already assume that the owner gets blamed for, should get blamed for. You could put Jimmy Haslam could come out after every bad decision and say, put that one on me. I can't, that I'm not just, if he comes out and says, you know what, that fourth down play call that we had the other day, put that one on me. That I'm not just forgiving Kevin Stefanski if it's a bad fourth down play call. You get what I'm saying? I can't, he could theoretically do that with everything because he's the owner of the team. Everything eventually the trickle effect of this, everything goes back to him because he is the czar of all things Cleveland Browns. So he could do that with everything. I can't. That doesn't mean I can just forgive the other people because the owner took the blame for it. I kind of feel like it should be assumed that the owner should take the blame. And when they do take the blame, I think it's admirable. You give them their flowers, but then you still sort of figure out, like, read between the lines on, like, who actually made the call on certain things and whatever. So for me, like, I don't just absolve Andrew Berry because Jimmy Haslam said that. He should say that. He should take the blame for it. But at the same time, that's being a good leader and all those things. But at the same time, what do we know about GMs in this league? You're defined by, and really coaches too, you're defined by the quarterback that you get and whether or not it works out with that quarterback. And the fact of the matter is, right now, at that position specifically, you have a regime, and we could talk about him as a whole, you have a regime that had a quarterback here who is now playing at an MVP level, and you traded him for whatever the reasons were. Again, we don't have to rehash all the Baker stuff right now. Whatever the reasons were, they moved on from him. Now he's playing at an MVP level. You traded for a quarterback who I understand was playing at an MVP level before you got him, a couple years before, and you took that swing. And I've never blamed them for taking that swing, by the way. But you tried it. It didn't work. He's now washed. Like, he's not the same player. That didn't work out. And it's been some of the worst quarterback play you've seen in football, like in our football lives that we've watched the sport from him. And then on the other side of that, you drafted Dillon Gabriel. You drafted Shedeur Sanders, which is still TBD. But you drafted Dillon Gabriel. They both attached themselves to this guy as the guy they wanted above all these other rookies because they took him before anybody else in the third round. Like, you're going to get to, at the end of the day, like, Jimmy Haslam can take blame for all these quarterbacks that have gone wrong if he wants to. But the GM and the coach get defined by the quarterback that they attach themselves to. Right now, the quarterbacks they've attached themselves to haven't been any good except for the one that they let go.
And then the one that they let go wasn't their guy to begin with. He was here before both of them.
Well, and the one thing I'll say on that is, and Mary Kay corrected me on this, which I appreciate. Andrew was here when Baker was drafted, so she made that point, and I think that's very important to remember. Like, he was part of this organization, had some say in that move when they drafted Baker. So maybe we don't know all the dynamics between, like, maybe it was more so a Kevin thing where it was like, I can't work with this quarterback anymore. I don't know. But at the same time, it wasn't solely his pick because that was obviously John Dorsey who was here. But he was here when that decision was made. What level of, like, I agree with this, he's my guy, played out down the line, I guess is
based on everything you just said, if it came down to it, based off that alone, then yeah, he should be let go. Because if you asking me, Earl Morton, how I feel, I don't want Kevin Stefanski coaching the next group of players to be picked, and I don't want Andrew Berry picking those players. I'm just thinking out loud that if there's other things that he might be really, really good at based on his job title, that might be still appealing to Jimmy Haslam. If not, then yeah, maybe what happened this week did signal the beginning of the end for both of them.
And you might be right. You might be 100% right that Jimmy sees the value in other things too. And maybe he does think he's a good talent evaluator. Like Grant Delp was playing at a high level this year. That was never a pick we kind of gave him. Now I think we got to give him that one.
He got to a second contract too.
He got that one right. Like, okay, like so I don't know. Maybe there are other things. Maybe he appreciates his talent evaluation. My biggest thing, though, is, like I said, it always goes back to the quarterback. You've been here 6 years. Things have gotten worse, and you still haven't found a quarterback for your team. What does that say about your tenure? Like, I don't know what else there is. I still don't necessarily think it means they're blanketly fired, but those are the things that are going to come into play when this team finishes the season, when the record is what the record is. Maybe it's 4 wins, maybe it's 5 wins. He's going to have to look and say, is this progressing the way I want it to? And does this regime deserve a 7th year to get it right?
It's just so damn frustrating, man, because when you think about, like, the statement we read about building through the draft, and we talk about, Jimmy wanting to get this right and then failing at it, right? It seems like that early on, Andrew Berry was attempting to build this thing, quote unquote, the way that Jimmy envisioned it, the Steelers' way, but just the Browns' way. Think about it. The offensive line is old and bad, right? But he did draft Zach Zinter 2 years ago. Luke Whippler has been on his team. He did draft DeJuan Jones. And I really believe, like, those guys in particular was drafted so that they can replace the other guys at the end of their contracts. The issue is they haven't been healthy and they haven't performed. And so this is one of those situations to where you could have the right intent And you can have the right plan in place, but that don't necessarily mean that you always know how to execute the play. Right? We get on him a lot about this offensive line and how we let this offensive line get to the point to where they at the end of their contracts, it's going to be a whole new line next year, and we don't have this and we don't have that. But we forget about the young guys that was drafted that we thought would be developed under the veterans that we had here, and it didn't work that way. And so from that's the frustrating part, because to your point, there is an asterisk there, and I know what you're talking about. And if that was to blow up and be a great thing, that probably washes that away. But we don't know. That's a big unknown. Yeah. That's a big question mark. And when you constantly don't draft players that make it to their second contract on your team, it's hard to overcome some of those early season, early tenure decisions that got us where we are. It
comes down to how long you're willing to give a regime and a person to sort of figure it out. And that goes back to what we talked about. Like, has Jimmy now gone too far the other way, where he's not making the emotional decisions, but he's not being reactionary enough?